What's interesting is I believe the sales message and the offer are actually one and the same. They're very separate roles, but I don't think you can have a sales message without an offer and vice versa as well. There's no offer without a sales message. They support each other, but they're very different roles.
Welcome to High-End Client Acquisition Podcast. My name is Marian. I'm your host, and this show is here to teach you how to attract your dream clients on autopilot in 30 days or less. Each week, I bring you a guest or a strategy that can help you take your business to the next level. Don't forget, you can always get the episodes in your inbox or messenger at clientacquisitionpodcast.com. I got to start this interview with a boom because Steve Larsen is the man. I've watched his journey and listened his podcast since I think about three years ago was the first time, and he was still an employee for ClickFunnels. I've watched him grew to a point where now he runs his own events, OfferCon. He's basically the man that I listen every time when I want to create an offer and I have no idea how to and what's going on. But the theme of this interview is how can people start acquiring high-end clients through publishing? And Steve, before we even get into questions, please let us know, how did you get started? What's your background? Just so people can get a little bit of your story.
Yeah, I got started, I think how most people get started. I don't think many people grow up thinking like, hey, when I grow up, I'm going to be an entrepreneur. You know what I mean? Most people be a firefighter or astronaut or whatever. You know, I got started in this game because we couldn't eat. And I needed to feed my family. And we were living in a college town. And like a lot of college towns happen, there's a lot of students who are willing to work for very cheap. So we couldn't actually even work 2 or 3 jobs and make ends meet. It was crazy. So I went and started building companies and they all failed for a solid 3.5 years. And it was really embarrassing. And until I ran into the whole funnel thing, the whole sales funnel thing. And everything started getting better after that. Ended up working for ClickFunnels, built a lot of cool programs over there, and then left to go run my own stuff. I'm addicted.
Awesome, man. So it's something really important that I want to start with, because you were an employee with ClickFunnels, but you started your podcast and you started publishing. And I think a lot of people miss this part where, I can only start once I quit my job, and then I'm not going to have any money and I'm not going to get motivated and all that stuff. So you were, working at a job, even though it was inspiring and you were learning, and you were sitting next to Russell Brunson, which inspiration is just like that little, just
oozing from the ceilings. Yeah, you can see it.
But what was your strategy behind that? Was it just to find your voice? What was your thought process at that point?
Honestly, I did not want to start a podcast. It was the last thing. It's funny. I was doing everything else he was saying. I was learning how to write copy. I was learning how to be on video as far as sales videos go for a funnel. But the actual podcast thing, I made so much fun of. I was like, there's no way I'm not going to be one of those talking heads. Like, there's no way. What am I going to say? What am I going to do? Am I going to run out of things to say? And all the standard fears everybody has before they start, that's what I was feeling. And so I made fun of it. And when I got to the first Funnel Hacking Live event, I couldn't afford it. So I bootstrapped my way there and I traded funnels for plane tickets and funnels for hotel tickets and the event ticket. And I remember I couldn't even afford a taxi to get to the actual event once I landed. So I rented one of those pedal bikes, like city bikes in San Diego, put my luggage over my right shoulder, and I balanced through San Diego, throughout all San Diego to the event. And I'd hid the bike in a bush and walked into Funnel Hacking Live. And as I was walking up, I remember saying to myself, I will do whatever this man has told me, will tell me to do, right? I've worked my butt off to get here. I've been, anyway. And I was like, I will do whatever he says, but I explicitly said, but I will never publish. I'm going to do whatever he says. I'm just not going to publish though. And so I walk in the door, and the very first session, like the very first day, Russell gets up and he goes, every one of you should start publishing. And I was like, no, I just said I would do whatever he told me. Are you kidding me? I was so mad. Well, about a week later, I was working for him. Like, that was not part of my plan. And I was working for him, sitting this far away from him, back to back. And he's spending all his time publishing. And, I was like, he's doing that because he's a marketer and he has to do things like that. But after about 2 or 3 months, I was like, there's something to this. Why is the CEO of a multi-$100 million company doing that? You don't see any other CEOs doing that. And so I started realizing what he was doing and the benefits behind it, not just for the audience, but also for him. And he would practice his message and he would gain clarity on it. And these weird things started happening where the role I actually got hired for is I was his funnel builder, but specifically I was brought on to help him build his personal clients funnels. So we were building funnels for, we were doing projects with Robert Kiyosaki, and we were doing projects like the show The Prophet on CNBC. I helped build a lot of those funnels, and it was interesting. And then he was constantly publishing and documenting everything that he was doing. And what I started noticing was not just benefits for, hey, we're about to launch this thing and, send all this traffic to it. It's not that just that was the benefit alone. He started developing and growing in these crazy fast ways, more clarity on the message, more clarity on, like, I remember when we first wrote the Funnel Hacker Manifesto, and a lot of it came from a lot of stuff that I could, maybe he was like testing in his podcast, and the things that it was really interesting. It's like the podcast and the way he was publishing was the way that he was testing his message against the market. And if they didn't like it, like, he was able to move on and spend no money. And then he'd go test and test and test. So it's cool. The market was guiding him. It's really interesting.
That's smart now that you say that. But let's take, for example, somebody that it's not as fortunate to work next to a person that understands that, right? Like, for example, a lot of people that maybe are employed now, or even they're just starting out, maybe they don't see that. They don't see somebody doing that like on a daily basis. Therefore, maybe you're not so pumped to just do it. What's your thought on somebody starting publishing for the first time? How do you find your voice? Like, do you just talk about stuff that you're good at, even if you don't know if people are going to respond to it? Like, what do you think about that?
That is one of the most frequent questions. And it is also, it's one of the questions where the answer is not inspiring. Okay, so we went and we created this event called the Funnel Hackathon event. We called it the FAT event. And we were walking on stage, and Russell's inner circle was there. And these people were paying 25 to 50 grand to be in the room. Very rich, very successful, smart people. And the room was filled with them. And I had gone through the previous 12 years of Russell's content, and I organized it. And I thought through, like, hey, in order to know this, you really need to do that. In order to know this, you really need to do that. And I put it in like this digestible way. Anyway, and we launched the original 2 Comma Club coaching program from that. Well, to test the material out, we were like, well, why don't we test the sequence against the inner circle? So it was a big event for me, but he was going to get up and teach it all. And so I was excited to see how he's going to do it all. I organized, put it all together, and as far as the content goes. And we're walking to the actual event room. I'm walking side by side with him, and he turns over to me and he goes, Steven, dude, do you want to introduce me on stage? And I was like, immediately, I was like, oh, no. I was like so scared, like, there's no way. In my mind, I'm very formula oriented. And I was like, what's the formula, dude? What's the script? How do I MC? How do I bring somebody in? And he starts laughing. He's like, dude, no, wait, okay, settle down, right? I was freaking out. And he took me back out of the room, and we went back over into this little side conference room. And he goes, Steven, I got to tell you something. It is impressive. It is very impressive how well you model me. That's very rare. But, dude, it is time for you to find your own voice. Stop asking, how would Russell Brunson introduce somebody on stage? How would you introduce somebody on stage? And it's so funny. Like, I focus so much on modeling success. It sounds stupid saying it, but it was the first time in my life. This is where I found my voice. It was the first time in my life I stood on stage and Steve Larsen was born on stage. And I was already podcasting because I was listening to what he's saying, but Steve Larsen started becoming born on my podcast. It was around episode 70 or 80. I felt it. I started doing it the way I would do it. I feel like a lot of the models and stuff that we followed, like, they get you to the 80%, and they'll jumpstart you and they'll help shortcut decades and lots of pain and money that you otherwise would have to spend. But eventually, like, the whole find your voice thing, it's very, in my opinion, very unteachable. I believe that there's things in this business that we can design, but there's other things in this business that we have to discover. And I think your voice is one of them. So you can just follow some scripts and blueprints for a while. And then after a while, it's like, okay, just how would you say it? Okay, cool. Say it that way.
Got it. So it's more, what I'm getting out of this is more like practice. And then it'll just come out at some point.
Yeah.
Got it. Awesome, man. That's a hell of a story.
It's funny, man. It was so depressing for me to hear that. I was like, just tell me the script, dude. I want safety in the script.
All right. Awesome, man. So I think they'll really help a lot of people that are listening or watching this. Let's take it a step further. And let's say somebody, all right, they started publishing. They started to get their voice and find their voice and find their message and, model it and design it and all that stuff. The next part in there would be the offer. And that's where your entire expertise and all these things come in, right?
Yeah.
What do you think is the next step for, let's say we're talking about a coach, a consultant that want to design the best offer? Where do you think they lack at, and how they can start looking at that process being one of the most important? Because I know you preach a lot on making sure that you work on your sales message and your sales process before you build your product, before you build your courses, before you build your anything that you want to build. What's your process for somebody that can do and implement that for themselves?
That's a very good question. What's interesting is I believe the sales message and the offer are actually one and the same. They're very separate roles, but I don't think you can have a sales message without an offer and vice versa as well. There's no offer without a sales message. They support each other, but they're very different roles. If you're going to go create an offer, and let's say you're a coach or a consultant or something like that, the first thing to realize is that entrepreneurship, like, this is something I've been talking about a lot lately, is like, I'm sure you've heard the thing where people say like, oh, CEOs read a book a week, right? And they're like, they read a book a week. And you're like, cool. And so for a while, I was just consuming because like, oh, well, that's what successful people do. Therefore, I will also do the same. And so I started consuming. And after about 2 years, I started asking myself questions like, I'm doing what successful people do. Why am I still broke? And I started asking like, what? And what I realized is several things. Number one, it was the first time in my life I started realizing the difference between marketing and sales, and that they're very different. Marketing changes people's beliefs so that they can buy something. That's what a sales message does. Selling, though, the act of selling is just presenting an offer and overcoming objections. They work in tandem, but they are very distinct things. And so if somebody's first coming out and like trying to come up with an offer, you got to realize like they shouldn't be behaving as a CEO. CEOs are people. The CEOs are in the business of running and tweaking systems. Entrepreneurs are in the business of solving problems, though. And so like if you're trying to come up with an offer for the first time, you got to put on the entrepreneur hat and get rid of all the mainstream CEO junk. Like, you're not a CEO. Stop acting like one. I don't read a book a week. Like, I'm not saying you shouldn't learn, but I learn with intent to solve problems. That's what an entrepreneur is in the business of. So like, you think about it with the way the customer is experiencing your product. Kind of like the Winter Olympics was a while ago, right? Crap, it was a while ago. It was like a year ago. Never mind. Time's going fast. Yeah. But like, if I'm going to go be an Olympic skier, like every single opportunity that's out there is guarded by a whole bunch of problems that you can't see, right? So like, if I'm going to go attain, like my dad was going to go be, really wanted to go be an Olympic skier. If he had the opportunity to go and be an Olympic skier, there's a whole bunch of follow-up problems that you have to solve that you never had to solve until you were given that opportunity. I know, follow me for a second. I know I'm kind of going over the place. Let me tie it with a little bow in a second.
I get it.
This is like a huge deal to realize this. And I think most people that are in the business of selling anything, any kind of entrepreneurship, any kind of business, we forget this. Your product is an opportunity, and there's a whole bunch of problems that you have to solve that show up after they buy. Just like the Olympic skier thing. If I have the opportunity to become an Olympic skier, now that the opportunity is in front of me, I have to solve problems that weren't there before I had the opportunity. Okay, now who's my coach going to be? Right? What kind of skis am I going to wear? What kind of mountains am I going to practice on? Am I fast enough on the times? Did I study my competition who's also going to be competing in the Olympics? You know what I mean? Yeah. It's the very same kind of thing that happens to us when we buy any kind of product in our life. I'm trying to find something on my desk here. Okay, this gum. Okay, this gum. There are follow-up problems that somebody has after they buy this that they did not have until they bought it. It's the same thing. Like if you are a coach or you're a consultant, when somebody buys your main product, there's a bunch of follow-up problems you now have to solve that were not on your table ahead of time. Like ClickFunnels, right? If I go out and I buy ClickFunnels, it wasn't until I bought ClickFunnels that I realized I should learn how to write copy. I didn't have that problem before I bought it, right? It wasn't until I bought ClickFunnels that I realized, oh my gosh, I should probably learn how to drive traffic. I didn't have that ahead of time. And so what you have to realize is that every product you sell is a gift, both to the buyer and you. Because when you go and you sell, okay, let's say gum, or something else, there's a bunch of follow-up problems. This is the easiest way to create an offer ever. What are the follow-up problems that my product creates for somebody after they buy it? Then you see what those are as a majority and solve those with additional products. I just give those away for free when they originally buy the first thing as well. So for example, this gum, right? What kind of issues would somebody have? Maybe they want more flavors. I don't know. Maybe they don't know. Maybe they want teeth whitening, right? Maybe that's why they're chewing gum. Maybe they're not eating foods that are good for them. I don't know. Maybe they just got bad breath in general, right? You could go and create a product and go interview oral health doctors, right? Yeah. And interview that, include that interview, which is a digital thing, takes nothing to fulfill, and bundle it with the original product that you sell. And all these things that you go stack on there, that's one of the easiest ways to create an offer ever. I hope that made sense. But I figure out what the follow-up problems are, create a product to solve them, and give it away for free with the original. Outvalue everybody. That's
insane, because I don't think I ever thought about like the whole offer creation process at the way that you said it. Because that can be applied to any kind of industry. Now, like regardless what you sell, as long as you charge people for something, they'll have a question that they didn't have before they bought it. So that's actually really, I hope everybody's taking notes.
It drives me nuts when people are like, but in my industry, it's different. I'm like, no, it's not. Like, do you sell something? Sweet.
Even if you sell a commodity, they'll still have questions like, oh, if it's a t-shirt, how can I wash this t-shirt so it's not getting all crappy after first or second, like whatever.
Exactly. Yeah. So we'll give you a cool PDF that shows cool fashion things to wear with the shirt. That comes for free with it. You're like, oh man, you just increased value without dropping price. So like, there's a few ways to compete in this world. If I got a bunch of other people who are selling something similar as I am, I could drop price. That's one way to increase value. Or don't drop price, charge a little bit extra, but have a more value. Because price and value are not the same thing. So I'm just going to bump the value up and do it with mostly digital products because it takes nothing for me to fulfill. And it just boosts the value like crazy. Now I can sell for a premium rather than fight to be the lowest person and for what I sell for. It's terrible. It's a terrible way to do business.
No, but it's super powerful. Like I hope everybody's literally just taking this part here, because this is worth a lot of money. This is what he just said in here.
Thanks.
Awesome, man. Love that. So I listened one of your episodes. I don't remember the name of it now, the title. But you stressed a lot on this matter. When people are talking about campaigns, you have a different way of approaching a campaign. A campaign for you is not just driving traffic to a funnel. It's a whole different thing put on steroids. Can you talk about that? Because I really think that this can help a lot of our listeners.
Yeah, I think the term campaign is something that's actually dying. It's a dying art. If you think about like before social media existed, all these marketers are out there. How did they get such fast, big sales? Buying an ad, like if you go out and you buy an ad on YouTube or Facebook, I think what's killing it is that they call it a campaign. From a direct response marketer's viewpoint, ads are just part of a campaign. It's not the campaign itself. A campaign is, it's pressure. It's building up to a certain point. So one of my favorite things to go do if you're podcasting or publishing, which is one of the easiest ways to get clients for life. Like it's ridiculous. It will change your life if you just publish. One of the things I like to do is I like to create episodes that lead up to an event. And so in the episodes, I'm like, hey, in 2 months from now, this is this cool thing that's happening. And by the way, here's a whole bunch of stories that are going to break your beliefs. I'm not going to say that, but that's what's happening. And I'm doing that and I'm dripping out those pieces of content to them. And at the end of all of them, I'm saying, hey, go to this page and register so you guys get early bird access or on the waiting list or whatever. And you build up all the pressure for this date. It's kind of like what Hollywood does for movies, and build up all this pressure. The mistake that most people make is that, how much money do you think Hollywood would make on their movies if you didn't hear about the movie that's releasing until the day it actually released? They wouldn't make that much money, right? They are masters at creating pressure to a date. They create pressure to it. Here it comes on this date. Oh my gosh, right? And then tons of sales come out all over the place. Then they're driving more ads and they're getting, right? And it's very much more like that. Ads are part of that, but a marketer at the core is an event thrower, right? Meaning not live event, but they build pressure to a certain date, right? And then using scarcity and urgency, remove access to it after a while strategically to get a second bump in sales. And so ads are part of that. Content's part of that. The campaign overall, though, is much more, it's much more, I don't even know what the word is.
Like making the audience hungry before you launch something so they can buy, like really making them hungry for your product before it's launched, I guess.
Yeah, there's in my mind, there's two types of campaigns that I use. There's a launch campaign. So if I'm going to introduce something to the market for the first time, that's a way, there's several strategies for building pressure, building noise, getting a big list, shoving them all through a certain date, right? So that there's lots of pressure out there. There's launch campaigns, and then there's evergreen campaigns. So an evergreen campaign, in my own definitions, but in my own definition, it is things like turning on Facebook ads, right? Where I'm just going to be tweaking the numbers, stuff like that. But you miss out on so much money if all you do is start a funnel or start a podcast and then just start turning on ads. Build pressure. And what I do is I use the two together. So I'll go out and I'll build a launch campaign and build all this pressure. And I'll do it because I have a podcast. I'll do it to my own audience. And then when they come by, it's a lot of, I take all that money and then I dump that money. I don't take profit. I dump it right back into my evergreen campaign. So I never put a dollar of my own in my business. I never have because of that strategy. That's how I launch everything. I go and I launch it with a lot of pressure, take that cash, roll it into my ads, and now my customers are paying for my ads. And anyway, that's how I do it.
No, that's super smart, man. I really love like the way that you explain things and the way that you put it out to the public. Like it's super smart. You've talked recently about, because everybody knows you as being the, one of the most in demand funnel builders. Like everything that you say, people will think like, oh, I'll go and implement. But you have a complete in-depth process of things to do before you even build the funnel, before you even touch your laptop to build the funnel.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people would miss a lot of that stuff. Can you debate a little bit on that process? I know we're getting close to wrapping things up in here, but
that's fine. Yeah. I think the biggest issue, and I did the same thing. I can't blame anybody for doing this, but I went and when I first got my ClickFunnels, the first thing I did, and this is what I did for a while, was you log in and you build the funnel, right? Which is great, but like ClickFunnels makes it so easy on the tech side to do stuff that it's attractive and it's sexy, and most people jump right to that and they say, "Hey, let me go build this sweet thing." So they build it, but then this is literally how I did it. I remember one of the first funnels I built is for a free plus shipping thing. It was the CD that I was selling. And I was like, I want to have a free plus shipping thing. So I went and I rebuilt all of Russell Brunson's .com secrets book funnel. But then I went back and I said, what should I sell on this page? And I went through and I came up with something to sell on that page. Then I went to the next page. What should I sell on this page? What should I sell on this page? And then after I had all the products in there, then I was like, how should I sell this? And I went and I wrote the sales message and I put it all in there. And it is the exact opposite order where you find success. The first thing you should go do, people got to get out of the mindset of testing products. You don't really test products, you test sales messages. So when you test the sales message, all the sales message, the role of the sales message is to cause desire for a purchase. The product just fulfills on the promise that your sales message made. That's all the product does. The product, of course, should be amazing, but you're not really, you don't need to test sales, or you don't need to test the product. It's not about that. What causes the buy is the sales message itself. So what I do is I go in and gather all this data from my competitors, from the red ocean, as we call it, I want something that's crazy competitive, highly competitive. And then I'm going to take all that data, craft my sales message for those people alone. So I'm not, the worst thing ever is when someone walks up and they're like, Steven, I built this sweet thing. Who should I sell it to? And I'm like, that is like square one. You jump to 99. Okay. First, you start with the who. It's all about the who, understanding where they are, understanding what they want, what they don't want, what their current desires are, what they've already been buying to try and solve their problems. So you don't go make that, and it's a step backwards in the customer journey. Okay. You understand more about where these people are. That creates your sales message. You go test that to those people specifically. And then once people are like buying, then I go create the product to fulfill on it. Super safe, completely the opposite order than what college taught me. different way of thinking about it. Totally different, completely different than mainstream entrepreneurship out there.
I get it 100%. Julie Stoyan shared the same type of, we were talking about an online course, and she broke it down in the same exact steps. So
Yeah.
I can see why for sure. Now, you talk a lot about the red ocean, blue ocean, and then you created something in the middle, purple side of it. How can someone, like, I know a lot of people will say, well, my industry is too crowded. I got to compete on price. I don't know how to build an offer, whatever. How are they starting? When they launch something, let's say they do what you just said, they start publishing, they find a voice, they create an offer, they create a sales message altogether. Are they testing that offer to the red ocean and then they try to build their own type of blue ocean out of that? Or what's the best way to do that?
Yeah, so there's a lot of strategies that are involved in that.
Just the big picture.
Yeah. So this red ocean concept, right? You think back in the day when Al Gore created the internet. He did not create the internet, but he claims it, right? But you think about that, like when the internet became publicly available for just everybody in 1991, there was one internet service provider. That's it, straight up monopoly. You couldn't get internet anywhere else. And then suddenly all these other tech companies look at that and they're like, we could be an internet provider, and someone else comes in, somebody else comes in, right? And they start driving the price down because of competition, because they don't understand how to create offers. What's interesting is, like, we actually want that. I want to have the most ridiculous, red, highly competitive, bloody ocean that is out there. I want it to be very bloody. I want it to be so competitive, because what's nice about it is that when it is competitive, it's actually security. If this market, right, if the market of internet service providers is lasting long enough, what's cool about that is that in order for the market to survive, they have to start learning how to create new customers. They have to go make customers out of people who are not planning on being customers. That is not easy, and most markets don't survive that, right? Like, most of us would not go get in the Beanie Babies accessories market, right? Or Pogs or Kmart or Sears, all these things that are like dying. What they didn't do is they didn't learn how to make customers out of people who are not planning how to be customers, right? They didn't move from, it's easy when a new thing comes out, they're collecting the easy people off the top who would buy it just because they're looking to buy something. What's hard is that after those people are dried up, for a market to move from customer collection to customer creation, that is hard. That is challenging. Most markets die because of that. And so what's interesting is, like, I actually want a highly red, you want a lot of competition, because it's a sign that the market is surviving and growing, right? Not all markets are red. I want one that's red. And I want to be able to go in, hopefully this isn't too deep, but like, I want to be able to go in and look at this really, really, really red ocean. And I'm going to learn how to take a step out of it and build a sales message that goes directly back into it. That is where my customer, because they figured out how to create customers. It means I don't have to learn how to create customers. I just sell to those people, and my sales message pulls people over to me. I don't have to create customers. I just have to collect them. It's very different. It's kind of a different way of thinking. I don't know. Hopefully that makes sense. But like,
no, it does.
It's so nice, because then most of the time, I've coached tens of thousands of people in this now. And the thing that's scary is they go do all this work. They create all these funnels. They make all the sales messages. They're making all the things that are out there, right, that we tell them to go do. But they go and they plug it into a market that's dying. And when the market leaves, they now have to go back to square one. The who. Crap, my who dried up. I don't know where they went. The market left. The market died. And so I have to go and I have to find a new who. And you have to go back to square one, create a new sales message, make sure that offer is something that's sexy and fulfills, make sure that the funnel is something that is attractive for that market. And it's terrible. It sucks. It's like, it's where the entrepreneur in this game, especially online, a lot of times they feel like their wheels are spinning. It's because they chose the wrong who. So I go in and I just say, hey, let's choose something that's insanely competitive, figure out how to throw rocks into it, and we'll talk to those who are only in the middle of pain. I'm not going to talk to somebody in there and try and sell them if they're like a massive diehard, right? They're like, oh, I believe this stuff. This is my thing, right? Right? That's like two people. That's like watching the Super Bowl with opposing fans in the same room. And they're trying, well, this team's better. No, that team's better. No one wins, right? It's the exact same thing. And 99% of sales copy that's written out there by somebody who's brand new, they were speaking to somebody in this red ocean who's a diehard. Like, it's a dumb argument. And so I don't speak to them at all. I find a market that's really, really, really red. And then I only talk to those people in there who are feeling pain and they hate the market they're in. They're like, I just don't know anything different. That's a very easy person to go sell.
No, that's something that a lot of people, I think, you just don't talk about it, because you hear everybody being like, oh, I'm afraid to get into that market because it's so, it's so crowded and I'm not going to be able to survive or whatever. But no, you just said the opposite. No, go there because you don't need to create customers. They're all of them over there, and it's so much easier for you to get them out. Awesome, and that's you literally just spitting fire here. So last question before we wrap things up in here. You are one of the few people that I know, especially in this online game, that has two complete different audiences, but you manage them, like you manage both of them so well in a way that you never I don't know, I mean, you correct me if I'm wrong, but it's very rare when you cross promote between the two, or no, maybe I'm wrong, I don't know. But I'm so amazed by the fact that I don't know how big both of them are. I know this one that I'm in, it's pretty large. I don't know.
Big.
Yeah. So then how do you manage to keep them, not necessarily from a technical standpoint, but because you have to create offers for both of them, you have to publish for both of them. How do you manage your time and your strategy behind that?
First of all, I would just caveat everything right there by saying, please don't try that. It actually was not on purpose, but it worked for a few specific reasons. So one of them is the MLM space, right? Yep. And when you think about that, the reason I went into that is because the exact same principle I was just talking about, that's an insanely red competitive ocean. There is a lot of opinions around that industry, which is good. I actually want that. I don't want anything that's too blue. I want a lot of red. Because then what I did, and this is the reason why it sells so well and why I don't actually have to manage it that much. What I did is, if this is one of the easiest way to create a sales message, create hooks, create podcast content, is you become the anti-red in your messaging. And so what I do is my headlines in that space are how I'm auto-recruiting a downline of big producers without my friends and family even knowing I'm in MLM. And they're like, what? Right? The whole industry is built around attacking your friends and family. And so when they read that headline, it is the anti-red. And because of that, that's why it's so talkable. So we drive ads to it, but on the ClickFunnels page, when everyone's like, who does MLM funnels? Everyone says my stuff. I'm not doing any of that. And the reason is because I'm so strongly anti-red, right? I'm like, yeah, do the MLM thing, but don't you dare do it in the way they're teaching you. And who does that speak to? It speaks to people who are doing it, who are in pain and hate it. They just don't know another way. Exactly as I was just saying. So it's talkable. And they're and they do a lot of my selling for me because it's so word of mouth. It's very easy to spread because no one's doing that, right? And then they can go, oh my gosh, have you seen this guy? He's got, right? And then they go in. And so that's one of the major reasons why when you choose, so I'm very careful on what I sell, not based on the product. I'm careful on what I sell based on the sales message and how abrupt it is in the red ocean. That's one of the biggest keys, and it's one of the biggest misconceptions. For years, I walked around asking myself the question, what should I sell? What should I sell? What should I sell? And it's paralysis. And if you're listening or watching this now and you're like, well, I don't know what to sell. I don't know what to do. The reason is because you're starting with the wrong question. Instead of what do I sell? You ask, who should I sell? And when you start there, who do I want to sell? My dream customer. What should I sell? It gets really easy because you just solve their problems and become the anti-red in your sales message. And then it's oh, okay. Way easier after you do a little research like that. As far as splitting my time up, every Tuesday, today, is my content day. So I do interviews every morning with anybody, jump on with anybody. And then glad to be here, by the way. And then the last half of Tuesday is content day. So I think through and I create all my podcast episodes for all of my shows then. So that's how I do it.
Awesome. And no, it's insane. Just, I hope everybody's taking every question that I asked you here because it was strategically asked. And you literally just completely blew my mind with all the content. So really appreciate you. Now, do you have a place for people to go to if they want to find out more about your process and the way that you're doing stuff, how they can check that out?
Actually, if you go to stevejlarsen.com, that's kind of just, we call it the funnel hub. So you can learn about all the different stuff there.
Awesome. So we'll put it in the notes, stevejlarsen.com, right?
Yeah.
Awesome. And if somebody wants to reach out to you directly for whatever interview or any other thing, what's your favorite spot? Or is the same place they can just pick from there or whatever?
Yeah, stevejlarsen.com, or actually I set up interviewsteve.com. interviewsteve.com, because it links right into my calendar.
Awesome, man. Again, appreciate you a lot. You literally just blew my mind today with all the answers. So we'll make sure everybody that's listening and watching this, they'll put all the things and pieces together, and maybe we'll do like a follow-up thing, because I'm pretty sure a lot of people will have a lot of questions after this gets released. And again, appreciate you, and thanks a lot.
Awesome, man. Thanks so much.
Hey, podcast listeners, I want you to know that I really appreciate your attention and I don't take it lightly. That's why each month we pick a lucky winner and we give away books, mentorship, software, courses, iPads, and other cool stuff. The way to enter is go to clientacquisitionpodcast.com and sign up. You'll get all the details there. Talk to you guys soon. Take care.